Call to order. Agenda approval. Anybody want to add, delete, rearrange anything on here?
I'm going to approve.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And no public. All right. Okay. Boy, I'm going to relish this for a second. It's so refreshing. Okay, all right, sorry. But moving on then, we have two taskers that the Board of Commissioners have given to us. First one is,
We're gonna do minutes first, right?
are we on here?
Approval of minutes.
Approval of minutes. That's
Yeah.
right, I got out of order. Sorry.
So I've got a couple of changes to the March 18th minutes. Everyone's looking at those. It's the bottom paragraph on the first page that we have. I think this handout is the first set of minutes. First set of minutes, I think.
Okay.
And I'm on the first page, I'm on that second from the last paragraph, it says Mayor Pro Tem. And it said, Member Thronson suggested the limits and liability should be negotiated. I think I said that the limitation on liability should be negotiated. There was one other change on the next page. First sentence is Mayor Pro Tem, starts with Mayor Pro Tem. And then it says the committee seemed to be good at how the funds are being used. And you were talking about the financial statements. I think we were good on how the financial statements were being used, and we didn't really opine on how funds were being used.
That's correct.
See, I did read these, Tom.
Okay. Megan, you've got those
Yes, sir.
So with those changes, I move that the minutes be approved
as amended.
as amended.
And I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, apologize, I got ahead of myself, no public. So call to order, agenda approval minutes, public comment. So we have been tasked with two taskers from the DOC. That they're kind of related in that they deal with occupancy tax heavily, but the first one is with regards to improvements to the BPAR fund balance, management of the BPAR fund balance. So let's start with that. Basically, the situation or the concern is that we got a big pot of money, pushing 8 million, is that right, Daniel? 7.8 or something like that?
So as of the last audited financials, as of June 30, 24, we're sitting at 6.6 total fund balance. 2.3 of that is stabilization by state statute, so that's money that has to be there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
4.3 last year was the number we're working with, and I sent Elsa an email at the end of last week. They're still in
Yeah, I know.
review stages,
Yeah.
but preliminary numbers for BPAR are 7.8.
7.8, yeah, that's the one I think, you either sent me or Tracy
Okay.
forwarded. Yeah, unaudited, but bottom line is that's a big chunk of money, and it needs to be strategically managed and viewed, not kind of a free-for-all, first come, first served, raise the kitty kind of thing. So that's the essence of it. And as you've already referred to, there's a certain amount that's really untouchable.
Yes.
So I did some digging on fund balance policies. I went to a virtual, I think it was Council of Governments meeting, and they got a big issue because they're probably going to lose a ton of federal funding that they've had.
Yep.
And so they're like, whoa, do we have enough money? What can we do? So they focused on a fund balance policy, and it had these categories to it. And then I did some AI, what would a fund balance policy include? So that came to this document here, which was AI generated. I added a couple things highlighted, but fundamentally it plays out what's the plan for the money, and it categorizes, as I think the auditor said in our last meeting, of restricted amounts that are restrained by external laws, committed amounts that are formally designated by audit ordinance. So if you've got a fund balance appropriation in the budget, then that's by ordinance, and then assigned amounts and unassigned amounts. So the thinking is the assigned amounts would probably be tagged to capital improvement items in the SIP. So, planning to do this, so that money's set aside. And then the unassigned would be the for grabs, or what do we use it for? And you get into these conversations, and it very quickly leads to, well, how much should we be setting aside for beach nourishment? And that's not an easy decision. It's high risk now because we're no longer affiliated with the Corps of Engineers for nourishment projects, and they're not going to bail us out. And depending on who you talk to, FEMA will or will not bail us out if we get with a hurricane. So it's really, what is needed to be set aside for beach nourishment, and what's available for all the other stuff that barbecues, deer building, things like that.
Can I ask a question? When you say we're no longer affiliated with the Corps of Engineers, what does that mean?
I'm sorry, the CRR Coastal Resiliency, there was a big beach sand nourishment project. They told us that they couldn't move forward with it. The need wasn't there. I'm sorry?
We don't have a viable project anymore.
Yes, we have no project. I should have said it that way. We're still affiliated with the Corps. We're doing a lot of stuff with the Corps.
Did they cancel a lot of projects? Is that what happened? I'm just curious. Where'd that
Ours
come from?
was,
I don't know how many years we were contracted with them to begin with, but this past year, that's all I know is that they decided we do not have a viable project anymore.
So they would do nourishment.
these were referred to as 50-year projects. Ocean Isle had one, which basically they're going to take care of beach for 50 years. Do nourishment and
So I guess my concern is that if we're getting tasked with allocation of funds and there is a resource that might help us, we need to understand why that resource is not helping us, and is there a possibility that they may assist us in the future? Like when they say it's not viable, is it because, I don't know why, they don't have the funds, we don't meet a criteria, is it a criteria we could meet? I'm just curious, I know FEMA might not be there, so granted on that one, but I do, Army Corps still wandering around as far as I know, and
we
yeah.
went quite a ways down the path with them, spent a ton of money actually.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering,
And
why would they say that?
Got to the feasibility section and they basically said we didn't have the need. And I think it had to do with our beach being in such good shape
Oh,
now.
Okay, well, good
That
for
there
us.
was no loss. Yeah.
They're more disaster driven or close to that disaster.
Right.
And, as we think about this, to go back to the allocation of funds, as I look through those numbers, I think the simplest way to do that is to look back at your 3 or 4 worst years and take that average, whatever those amounts are, and break those out into percentages and apply that to this new year, just as a guide, because otherwise we'd just be guessing. So you can dissect that, right?
So I spent a lot of time trying to understand this. And let me ask you some questions and make sure that I've got the appropriate understanding. Maybe it'll help somebody else, maybe everybody gets it with me. But, so, B-Park Fund, what you talked about earlier was the balance in the B-Park Fund at 6/30/2024, right? The big balance. And we collect 6% occupancy tax. 1% goes to Brunswick County. 3% has to be used for parks and recs and those types of things. And 2% has to be used for beach nourishment.
That's correct.
True. We also had a property tax increase in 2017
For Central Reach.
for Central Reach. And we're paying off that debt at a rate of $1.2 million a year.
That's correct.
And we increased property taxes to pay for that debt, right? Pay
I
that
don't know if he
debt.
was here then.
Oh, I was not here, but that's my understanding.
Basically doubled the tax.
Okay? And the intent was to use those proceeds to pay down the debt on the Central Reach project, right?
Right, and I believe there was about $5 million of B-Park fund balance that was applied, and then
Okay.
there was the financing on top of that.
Okay. So we're collecting $5 million plus or minus of occupancy tax a year? $4 million, $4 to $5 million?
Yes.
Something in that range.
Somewhere in there.
So 2% of 5% has to be spent on beach renourishment, so that's 40%. So 40% of $4 million is 1.6, 40% of $5 million is 2 million. So somewhere between 1.6 and 2 million has to go in the beach renourishment fund. And we have a name for that fund, right?
No, it doesn't have to go in beach renourishment fund. Beach nourishment is a wide spectrum of things. Like we do the plantings every year. So everything in the B Park fund, every expenditure that we have budgeted in the B Park fund is either Parks and Rec or beach nourishment.
Let me restate that then. That 1.6 to $2 million has to be used for beach nourishment.
Yes.
Okay.
Or
Beach protection, probably.
yes.
It says beach nourishment. I think
It's
the
a
enabling,
nourishment
I think the enabling legislation says beach nourishment, if you guys can correct me on
Yeah,
that.
it's nourishment and reserves.
Yeah.
Emergency reserves. They don't truly break out the
So,
itemization of them.
so we're collecting 1.2 in additional tax to pay for beach nourishment, if you will, or repay the loan. We're collecting between 1.6 and $2 million for beach nourishment under the provision of the law. So that's like $3.6 million plus, something like that, $4 million almost. And so we have to demonstrate to the auditors that 2% that we collect has been used for beach nourishment. How do we do that? We just say we pay the debt and,
Well, Christie keeps running a spreadsheet with the actual breakdown of what the expenses in B Park are, beach, and then what's Parks and Rec. But in the past couple years since I've been here, I think the year before last, or maybe even the year before that, we did a transfer from general fund for that tax increase you're talking about. But this year we did not budget that transfer from general fund to B Park fund, which is in part because we moved all the parking revenue to the B Park fund. So, and just the increase in salaries and everything.
okay, so the parking revenue has to go to the B Park fund?
No, it does not.
It does not
But
have
that's
to.
where it's housed now, so there hasn't been the
So we even
need
have
for
more
the
in the B
transfer
Park
from general fund to B Park fund.
Okay.
Parking originally went in general fund and then it got moved, like the first year was general fund?
Originally, it had to be housed in the general fund because we needed to get the enabling legislation to allow us to use the parking revenues for something other than streets and protection. So originally, all on-street parking had to be used for streets or the cops, basically.
Okay.
But now we've got legislation, we can use it for anything.
Would you agree with this statement if some citizen came to you and said, Daniel, I think the biggest uninsured risk we have is the refurbishment of the beach in the event that something happens to our beach? A major hurricane moves through tomorrow. That's our major uninsured risk. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So since it's a major uninsured risk, we need to establish reserves for it. So the question becomes, how much reserves do you establish? And then second question is how do you fund that reserve? And it seems like there's plenty of money out there to be able to fund a reserve depending on what you set the reserve at, because there's that 2%. That's 2% that we collect from occupancy taxes that has to be used for nourishment projects. And then there's additional tax we're collecting that we're telling the taxpayers we're using to pay down the debt on the, and the question I really have is, are we telling the auditors one thing in terms of how the funds are being used for beach nourishment, including the repayment of the loan? And are we telling the taxpayers a different thing, that the repayment of the loan is being paid from not the B Park funds, the occupancy taxes, but from the ad valorem taxes?
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to say earlier about we don't do that transfer from general fund anymore. So like ad valorem tax is not paying that debt down anymore. It is all a function of B Park.
So that additional tax increase is really being absorbed by other increasing expenses that the town has. And we've just been avoiding another tax increase by using those funds and using the B Park funds instead. Okay, that's what I concluded from all of the things that I read, but I wanted to make sure that my understanding was clear.
Can I ask another question? Because you were talking about like sort of uninsured, but the town's self-insured, right?
Yes, but sand's
You
uninsured.
were saying, well, I know, but I'm just thinking, is the water tower insured?
The water tower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a self-insurance risk pool that the town is in. So
Yeah,
if you ever
the
had to
state-
collect
the
on
state
that,
has one.
yeah, right. And so if you ever had to, I mean, sand, obviously, they're not gonna replace, but all of our other stuff,
Sand has traditionally been a
exception.
FEMA
Yeah, right.
insurance.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I call
FEMA has
self-insurance. We have to
been,
fund it ourselves. We're not
Right,
part of
right,
a coalition, we're not
Right.
part of a.
Yeah, well, it's like a self-insured risk pool for all cities, counties, and towns, right?
So my first question though, before we dig too deep into it, so imagine the general obligation bond is said no to. That changes every part of this discussion today, right? Because those funds then we have to find another source to fund other projects for the pier.
I'm not sure. Oh, the geo bonds.
The
For
geo
pier,
bonds
that's
that's coming
gonna
up
be
for a vote
on the
now,
ballot.
how does that, let's say it's a no-go. That significantly changes what we're discussing.
Well, the money is in the, B part.
Because it's B-part money that's tied to that. fund.
No, well,
Nothing's technically tied up to the pier right now. Or what did we budget? It wasn't a lot this year for.
400,000 or something like
Yeah,
that.
it kind of
But that was
depends on
for,
the
yeah.
architecture, engineering stuff.
Okay.
Well, I mean, part of the issue is, this money, people got an eye on it for the pier, got an eye on it for Buckview, got an eye on it for everything.
Well, I mean, so in the face of a pending referendum, should we be making recommendations until that goes through?
That's my question.
I think we need to make recommendations on the fund balance, particularly for the sand projects.
But that's statutory, yeah?
Yes and no. Not the 1.2 million that we're collecting in ad valorem taxes.
Right, so we're talking about exceeding the statutory requirement for the sand fund. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, there is a statutory requirement. I mean,
Well,
The
the-
requirement's 2%, right?
Yeah, that
The
is,
collection.
that's law.
Yeah,
that
collection.
2% has to go to
Period.
the beach nourishment, 3% has to go to tourism.
And you
So-
said how much is in that fund now?
So that's the
A
floor.
couple $1 million?
In what fund?
In the reserve fund,
The
capital.
sand fund?
I do not have that number. It was in the CIP, but I do not have that on me.
There's not a lot in there. I mean, we're collecting 40% of $4 or $5 million a year,
Right,
and we surely aren't spending $2 million a year on beach renourishment.
no. So
I know we're
there should be
spending
some-
1.2 or whatever to reduce the debt, and I think they're using that. I think they're saying that is beach renourishment.
Oh. Yeah, I think
I mean,
we would
that-
need to understand that, right? Like, is there just this money sitting there for beach renourishment?
Well, yeah, we've got the Fund 90 that is strictly for beach and inlet.
And what
So
money
that's not
goes
funding.
into that? What money goes into that?
B Park sends some money every year to it, and general fund, any fund balance from the general fund over 70% goes to that.
And
Like
it's
last
beach-
year, I think we did, was it 2 million, 2 point
I can't
something?
remember.
It was 2 point something million dollar transfer, it was a big transfer.
How much?
2 point something million,
From the general fund?
yes.
And how much is the transfer within the B Park fund?
It was significantly smaller, it was probably 90,000, something like that.
And we collected 2%, we collected 1.6 to $2 million in the B Park fund and the occupancy taxes for beach renourishment, and we only sent $90,000 over.
Well, we also spent, like say, on surveying and seeding and
Almost $2 million.
probably so.
So we spend $2 million a year on beach renourishment,
Well,
I don't
or
know.
nourishment.
related to the beach, yeah, I guess the issue is if we've got to do a sand nourishment project, and there's, I don't know if it's officially in the SIP or it's addendum to the SIP, you know, we
Yeah, it's
tag
kind of
the,
its separate thing because it goes out so far because it's like we're not supposed to need one for another 30 years. But, you know, that's
yeah.
Throwing a dart at the wall.
So it's a $50 million project, 15 years out, I think, or something like that?
Yes.
And
No, it's more than 15 years out.
is it
Isn't
35? I don't know, I can't remember. But the thought was we'd have half in cash, 25 million in cash and 25 million in borrowing. Is the plan?
Or traditionally, the state has, like for the dredging, that we just did the budget amendment for this past meeting.
For this,
For the
process,
end,
yeah.
They pay some share too.
Yeah, I think in the past that fund was used for just regular dredging, but now it's only for dredging that puts sand on the beach with a pipe. Which factors in, I think, if I got the numbers right, when we did the last beach survey, if we can put 160,000 cubic yards on the east end, we can stay in front of the background erosion, because that sand will migrate on down. So if we're dredging, and I think we had to like get it every year to get to the 160, this is getting, I think, 150 now or something like that. So there's two things. One is background erosion, 2 feet a year average, we're gonna lose sand. And then the other thing are storms that take 30, 40 feet in one shot. I know when they did Central Reach, the thought was that we do another one in 10 years. We want to save up 10 million in 10 years, do a $20 million project, half finance, half not. But because we did Central Reach, we became an engineered beach, and FEMA paid that 20 million, so we didn't have to have it. So when the Beach and Inlet Fund was set up, I think the thought was $1 million a year contributed to that for a major nourishment project.
If we recommend this and the Board of Commissioners adopts it and funds are transferred in this way, can they be reverted for other uses?
No, anything that gets transferred to the 90 to the Beach and Inlet Fund is, it's committed at that point. Right now in B part it's restricted. Once it gets moved over there, it's committed to that.
So we're talking about moving money out of B part, which is more flexible funding, and putting it into a more restricted fund. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. When does the board want to make this decision?
Tom's question. I think.
Well, depending on the board members, some now.
Sure.
I think I think we need to protect some of this money, because I'm worried that it will get spent and we won't have money set aside for beach. I'm viewing beach nourishment like my retirement account, that
Sure.
we're gonna need it and we need to start funding it.
I'm not arguing with you,
Okay.
so little needs done, but I'm watching that go away. I guess my concern is this: we're in a time of shifting sand, right? Federal funds are diminishing. There is no state budget currently. There's not one in sight. We have an election coming up. Depending on how that shakes out, we have a peer decision. We have a mayor decision. Right now, we have a mayor who's volunteering as our town's emergency manager. If we have to replace that with a paid staff, we have another budget issue in this town. So my concern is that we would be tying our hands without having a full picture of what is to come in the next few months, which will become very evident very quickly, right? We've got a couple of months, and very quickly things will become evident. That does not preclude the board from acting in its capacity as the board, as it should, but it seems premature to obligate in this way in the environment that we're in. I'm just saying.
Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
When I think about like our roles to pass those rules down, we have to have that discussion about where those monies come from now. I'm dealing with it with our property owners association now. In 19 years, no one's had any cost increases in anything. You know, our parking is $20. We have a small lot, and I'm a full-timer. My wife and I, we've been full-timers here, and speaking for full-timers, not renting the place, I believe that maximize the cost should shift to the tourists that come and see our beach. So, to me, you know, increasing parking, we know parking generates $2 million, or a little over $2 million, right?
$1 million.
No, there's
$1
no,
million.
And that's at its current rate. If we were to increase that for a period of time, let's say, as we build these reserves that you're talking of, let's say the referendum falls through, nothing happens, going up for a temporary period to taking that all the base pays, that $20 to $40, $60 for a 3-5 year period, that's going to generate. If you're saying it's $1 million, where did I get the $2.1 million figure for parking? That
Facebook.
no, from the last meeting. I don't read that. For that reason, I read that.
I'm not on Facebook for that reason.
So let's just say that. So by increasing that trifold, that's $2 million additional each year for that 3 periods. So that and then a water rate increases. I don't know what that has been. Has that been looked at?
Water has to stay in. That's an enterprise fund. It has to stay. It's like it operates as its own business, basically, water and sewer.
Yeah, my first thought was occupancy tax. It could be 12%, wouldn't matter to me because, I don't rent my house out or rent her anyway. And I see it as the more that we can find ways to generate that capital through tourism, it's going to be more beneficial to us because we're too small. That tax liability later on, I don't want to keep carrying the weight for all these other people that are coming here that aren't even here. Like our emergency services are being exhausted. For some guy in Oklahoma, when my neighbor's dying from a heart attack right here, and I got to take him to the facility. Those are the kind of things I'm thinking about, especially being here long term.
the occupancy tax is state legislature.
Right. So we can't stop that.
So it's 6%, yeah.
I'm talking about parking and water, like other ways. This conversation is really important that we start talking about where is that money going to come from if we don't get any government money at all. And I believe we have a lot of options. Now, it's going to hurt. It hurt, so I just had to do a special assessment. We have our piers completely done, our floating dock is done, our beach access is done, everything's completely brand new. We probably won't need service for anything for another 2 or 5 years or greater. And that could be the position that we could be in and build those reserves, retirement account, to that we can start funding our own projects. And maybe that's a 10-year increase of parking. Not saying it's always going to stay high, but I think we should have that discussion of increasing those places right now, and make it this. I mean, we're a destination, right? No one knew about Holden Beach for some reason, and since 2022, a lot of people have found this beach.
It's the sea biscuits.
Yeah, that too. So that's my 2 cents about, as we talk about this allocation of percentages. I honestly believe that after looking at everything, looking back at those past 3, 4, 6 years, just take a lump of those and an average, and then break it out into a percentage of whatever that amount should be, and that way no one can say, hey, you're not being fair. We just took the average of previous worst years and made our task simple to present to the board, because it's Pandora's box.
Yep.
Either way, right?
Yeah, what we've got right now in regards to the beach nourishment fund laid out in the CIP for the beach nourishment fund, whenever the 1.2 million debt service retires in year after next,
I think so, 2 more payments.
shifting that funding to go straight to the beach nourishment fund. And with that and some small transfers here and there, and the interest we're earning, or a very, very conservative interest rate. I think we plugged in 2%, was it?
Yeah.
And I just met with capital, our rep from the Capital Management Trust, which is where that money's at right now. And he was saying for long-term projections, he would use 2.5%. So that being said, we're set. If we do what's laid out in the CIP, we are set to have the appropriate funding that we're estimating we will need at the end of the 30-year project.
Also, and who's behind on occupancy tax? So something else that my neighborhood is just now dealing with. we're filing liens against property owners that haven't been paying their bills for years. I just became president, so I really wasn't the happiest. I didn't make everybody happy, but I'm a businessman. So when you come in and you see it, you fix it, you move on, and it just is what it is. And that's how I look at this opportunity for us. So the bad debt section, how much bad debt is out there? Who are we carrying weight for? And maybe we need to look at hiring a true tax collector and a small staff that's a part-time staff. I'm sure there's a lot of people on this island that probably over-purchased and maybe would enjoy a part-time job that have that skill set. So I would like to see something like that we have someone that's dedicated to tax collection, because what I found out that's happening, my board was very resistant, but what's going to happen is that bad debt's going to continue, and the rest of us are going to continue to carry that weight, and our, I guess you would call that, well, I don't know the accounting term, but our liabilities are increasing with these bad debt individuals as that number grows, and we don't.
Yeah, you're allowed allowance for doubtful accounts.
Daniel will attest that I've been on him about tax collection.
Yes, and our tax collector does do everything that's required by the state, like publishing the delinquent payers in the newspaper, and
We go as far as going after putting a lien on the property. I mean, I guess it's a lien on the property, but the fact that he didn't pay it, but foreclosure or anything like that, or none of them go that far?
I think the most we can do is the lien.
So we go to lien, foreclosure, and sheriff's service. So again, you're on an island. It's not the mainland, completely different. So that can't let bad debt
So
way down.
do we ever write it? I was reading somewhere the county writes it off after a couple of years. Do we write it off, or do we just carry the?
After so many years, yeah. So it goes in after so many years. It does go into an allowance for doubtful accounts, which is just it's there. They owe it to us, but we doubt we're going to get it
Okay.
because it's been however many years.
So
Does the state of North Carolina allow subrogation? I don't know. Like intercepting any tax refunds or payments that they may receive? Can you file with the tax department to intercept?
I am not aware of that. But
So there are interception methods that the tax collector can do, that can set in place, and that'll be on autopilot, that anything
it's
that
on
person
audit.
purchases or tries to attempt to get.
which what happens a lot of times with properties like that is we get paid whenever they sell, because
Right.
whoever buys it
Sure,
has
sure.
to
Of
pay
course.
the tax
Yeah.
and the penalty. So
You get everything.
So even though it's in doubtful accounts, we're still tagged on. We've still got a lien on it.
So Tom, I'd like to refocus this discussion,
Yeah, I
because I
think
think
we're-
that's a second agenda item.
Yeah.
I want to go back to first of all, make sure we stay in our lane as an audit committee, and we deal with financial reporting and financial risk. And we don't deal with appropriations. We don't, how they spend their money, they spend their money. It's not for us to figure out how to fund things. It's for the Board of Commissioners to figure out how to fund things along with that. Ours is financial risk and financial reporting. And I believe that there's a huge financial contingent liability, a huge financial risk out there in terms of the sand fund. And if we do what you say we should do, and that's adequate, I'm fine with that, but I still think there needs to be a policy that needs to be put in place to say, this is what we're gonna do, this is the risk. We understand the risk, we know it's not an insurable risk, we have to self-insure it, and therefore we're gonna establish reserves for it. And those reserves suggest, we can't decide on the reserves, the board needs to decide on the reserves, we can make suggestions with respect to reserves. And in order to reduce that financial risk that's out there. And we can also make suggestions with respect to how to make the county more transparent. Because I think a lot of the issues that are created on this island are because we don't have perfectly transparent accounting, and people can't point to numbers and financial statements that said, this is where the parking money went, this is how it was spent. This is how we spent the $2 million on beach nourishment. And I'd like to see more transparent accounting in this theme park fund. So I suggest we do two things. I suggest we try to arrive at a policy if we can. And the second thing is talk about transparent accounting.
which I want to go back. I'm not saying we should be doing like what the CIP lays out, I'm just saying that's what the
Understand.
CIP lays out.
Yeah, and that's what the board has, I
Yeah.
think that's what the board,
Yeah.
direction the board's given you, is
Yeah,
that
because
what?
that is a board decision, because I mean, it comes to debate, like spending current taxpayer money for future expenses, but
Right,
that's,
right, and I reviewed that when, in all of this, I saw the CIP and kind of how all that was laid out. I don't know, I mean, arriving at an amount of reserve is gonna require a little bit of work, and even maybe, talking with our consultant who deals with us on beach nourishment, and to get a view from our consultant in terms of what we should be planning for and what that funding might be. But I think it behooves us, if we don't put a policy in place in terms of funding, recognizing the fact that we have a potential liability and providing for that. I think it's just prudent financial management to provide for that, provide an adequate reserve.
But
to
haven't
meet
we
that risk.
been providing an adequate reserve as required by code? Have we not been doing that?
there's no code that says we have to have this beach nourishment fund, or,
I thought we had to direct a percentage of funding to it.
yeah, but it doesn't have to be in a reserve.
It could be
Well,
just in the
we've
general
got
department.
the general fund
Okay.
balance policy that says, yes, anything over 70% unspent has to
Right,
go there.
okay.
But you have to track it, even though it doesn't have to go
Well,
in a separate fund,
yeah.
you have to track that 2% and demonstrate
Yeah, well,
that
let
it's
me,
using beach nourishment.
yeah, let me even reword that, because the fund balance policy, it is policy, it's not a law, so it doesn't have to go there, it's just a policy that says, this is what we want to do, and that's up to the board to direct staff to move that.
That's just a general fund.
Yes, for the general fund.
And I think we're talking about the same, similar thing for B part. 'Cause I guess I question the 15 years, you know, we did Central Reach, I think it was $16 million, 2017. 4 years later, we did do another $20 million. So I think that's realistically what we're looking at, is 4 to 5 years from now, we may have to shell up 30 million. You know, it was in the paper today or yesterday, Oak Island just shelled out 40 million.
$40 million.
And they had 40 million, and they spent it all on this project. And, you know, we've got 2 million, 3 million, you know, we
Four or five.
in the reserve fund right now, 4 or 5 million. So that to me is the issue of to mitigate that risk, how much should we be putting in so that if we get hit and FEMA turns up their nose and we have no beach, we've got to do a project.
Tom, before we go there, can we agree that the town should have a policy for funding for this? And a separate reserve fund for it?
Yeah, I agree with you as well. And this document, today we can say, hey, this is gonna be our working document to present to the board. And we just need to say, okay, here's a speculative percentages that breakout based on restricted, committed, and signed, unsigned.
Yeah, the complexity to me is this is the B part fund. So we can, you know, break it out and say this much is, then the beach and inlet reserve fund is a separate fund, you know, so how much is housed here, how much should be housed there? If it's housed here, can we protect it enough that it's there to mitigate the risk, or could it get raided and then we're exposed?
Like Tim says, I think we should work on the policy. Let's get the policy down and then go back to the numbers.
Okay.
Is that what I hear you saying? To don't have to throw
Yeah,
words in?
no. I would suggest, first of all, we agree that a policy needs to be put in place, and then what that policy should be.
Are we on the same page here? Do we need a vote, or are we by consensus?
I would like to move to vote that, if that's what we're doing right now, move to vote that we take this document as our starting working document on policy to present to the board.
Okay.
And then discuss the ideas of, well, wait a minute, let's approve the document to move forward. So,
So this is a rough draft. I know there's some recommended examples in here. You know, I got some highlighted areas.
I second that motion.
Okay. So are we saying this is good to go, or do we want
Yes.
to take a, okay?
Yes, because we gotta, like Kim said, you know, it makes sense.
Complete it out.
Right.
Well, are we gonna have discussion on the motion?
Yep.
Let me ask the question.
Sure.
Daniel, what other islands have policies like this?
I'm not sure. I know Ocean Isle, they just recently, they didn't even have a general fund balance policy. They asked me in the past year
Right, they're much bigger.
about our general fund policy, and I sent them a copy of that.
Right.
So I did follow up to see if they had adopted our policy, but it seemed like they were going down the road of adopting some sort of general fund balance policy. But I'm not aware, and that's from also just from not asking too, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that we need to reserve funds. Straight up, yes, you are correct. It appears there's a mechanism for reserving funds already within the existing fund. Is that correct?
Yes, Fund 90.
Right.
It's a separate fund, is that what you're talking about, the separate fund?
Well, I mean, you could move money out of this into Fund 90, right?
Yes, you can move money
Right.
from general fund or.
So I'm trying to understand why we need a policy to do a thing we can already do.
Make sure it gets done.
Why isn't it getting done now?
I'm not sure it's happening.
Well, I think,
We
I
wanna-
can answer that. I think that this, we need to, right now, it doesn't exist as a governing document. Again, I'll go back to my property owners association.
Right,
For many, many years of just doing what we were doing, there's no guideline as to, okay, what are we doing? And let's just explain it in simple terms. It's so, accounting documents are easy to, accountants go through it and say, hey, here they are. But
Sure.
we've got to start generalizing this information so the townspeople can understand it.
but we can already do it, is my point, without a
Yes.
Oh,
policy.
well.
And this will start a regulation. This is just a draft document. The best part about this is always this will probably be around.
So this is
What
gonna be
years
an
after this?
ordinance? Is that?
No,
an
it'll be the
ordinance?
same as the,
Policy.
it's a policy.
So the next board could change the policy?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, the hesitation that you guys hear me saying is not about policy. I love a good policy down. I'm down with money in the same fund, all that, yay. My concern is that I have a different view, maybe from people in this room. I just stopped working at the federal level. I am back working at a local level. I'm also doing work with the state of North Carolina. And I understand now that towns and counties need maximum flexibility on unrestricted funds because stuff that people are used to getting, they are not going to get. And that's gonna extend to public safety. It's gonna extend to water, wastewater, environmental protection, and everything else. It's not coming. And if we bind up our funds and something happens, we will be in a fix. That is the only caution that you hear me saying. I am watching federal agencies who by now should have 50 grants on their websites, have 3. And 2 of the 3 are tribal. So I'm telling you, if we bind up these funds in the environment that we're in and something happens and we cannot be flexible, I don't know what can happen, I don't know. But if we need to be able to the board needs to be able to do an emergency move and we have done this, then we may be tying our hands needlessly and inviting an audit violation needlessly. That's all I'm saying. And I mean, but I agree. I like really good fiscal responsibility. I like thinking about the future. I also know we are in a time when the sand is literally moving under our feet from a funding stack perspective. That's all I'm saying.
I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
The issue here was that not having enough money to renourish our beach
Yeah.
is our biggest risk. I think, I've always thought a big risk is we get hit by a hurricane in May, wipes out the tourist season, we get no BPAR money,
Right.
and we got to do nourishment.
Sure.
So, that's kind of where I was coming from, is we got 8 million, is that enough, is that not enough? And that gets right to these questions of how much would, if that scenario were to occur, how much money would we need
Right.
in our BPAR to handle the fact that we got we're not gonna get any revenue for that year,
But you
and
want
we're
it
gonna have additional
flexible for
expenses.
stuff that you want it flexible because the concern that I have is stuff that we're used to other funding sources paying for. I don't believe that's gonna happen. And so there's gonna be stuff that used to be reimbursable for local governments that will no longer be reimbursable.
So, to be specific, they're paying for a bathroom, that probably wouldn't happen, they're paying for a sewer station, that probably wouldn't happen.
Right,
They
correct.
paid for beach nourishment,
That's not.
that's probably
Right.
gonna happen. So,
Right. Yeah,
I think we're on the same page, is we need to think about this money we have
right,
and have an approach for how we prioritizing its use and what we recommend that it be saved for or earmarked for, or whatever you want to say, but not frivolously spent, and then we need it for an emergency.
right. Well, and depending on how the election goes, the town may need to purchase an emergency manager position, right? Because you need to have one of those. So right now, the person who's doing that is volunteer, unless they're going to continue to volunteer.
I won't just, to me, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. This is talking tens of millions of
That's true,
dollars. So
I know, but I don't want to.
we got $8 million that we're basically having a discussion of
Okay,
what kind of protection do we want to put around this, or how do we want to focus it and put some thought behind it.
And policy's not binding. This is, I look at this as an advisory board. As
That's
Jim was saying, we're putting that down. We're putting all our ideas out there the best way possible and producing documents that gives the board some guidance. So I'd like to bring that motion back up to approve this fund balance policy for the town of Holden Beaches, beach park access recreation beach.
I think we need to have the tourism with it. Somehow.
Special revenue fund.
The TMV part is tourism.
And move to adopt this document as a starting working document to begin a formal policy. Is that?
Okay, you ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are you abstain?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, I'll make it unanimous. Okay. Then I guess the second point which Tim broached on was, should we make a recommendation or consideration of what the appropriate level of funding would be to set aside? I guess I have the same question. If the law says we should be spending $2 million, are we going to interpret that as $2 million set aside for a major project, or $2 million to spend on sand fence and plantings and dredging and things that don't really save the beach?
I've got a suggestion, Tom. I would divide it into two different funds almost, if you will. And the first one I would call the primary tax reserves. It relates to the 3% occupancy tax that we spend on general B-part purposes as opposed to just the beach nourishment. And I think the operating reserve, you might want to think about an operating reserve that's equal to 6 or 12 months of B-part revenue, and maybe a catastrophic reserve of just $5 million. So you got $5 million to fix stuff. And then if the B-part funds go away for some period of time, you've got 6 months or 12 months on reserve, if you will. And depending on the hurricane, I might go on the lighter side of that, because hurricanes tend to occur later in the season as opposed to earlier in the season. And you got time to recover from the, homeowners have time to recover from the hurricane if it's later in the season and you don't risk as much B-part revenue. If it occurred in May and you have no B-part funds for the year, you're really hurt. But a likelihood of a major hurricane occurring in May is probably significantly less than one occurring in October or November when most of the season's over. So I would suggest that half of 1 year of B-part fund be reserved, and maybe I would suggest maybe a $5 million general reserve, that if you had a major event of some sort, you got $5 million to go towards recreational and parks and those types of things. The second part of it would be the 2%. And the same thing, you'd have a beach emergency reserve of maybe $5 million. And then maybe a beach renourishment capital reserve of $1 million a year for 20 years.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So first part of it would be this is a target over time, this
Yeah.
isn't tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you can try to get $5 million in it just as a general catastrophic,
Mhm.
And then for beach renourishment that you know is going to occur because of break the beach every day, the beach is going away. $1 million a year, so that every 20 years you got $20 million to refurbish the beach.
That's in the current financial situation too. That didn't include any other sources of income. So yeah, so you're saying make that a motion just as a starting point, as a conversation.
Yeah, I can make that motion. That is the suggested reserve balances.
All right. I will second that motion.
Do you want to add to that over time? Like, how long do you want to build that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's subject to interpretation or debate. I don't know how long it's going to take to build up $5 million in each one of these two parts of the B part reserve. The 3% and the 2%. I don't know how long it's going to take to build up $5 million in each part of those. And then,
We're already at the
Over there.
7.8.
Yeah, you're well
Yeah.
above it.
I don't know if I designate all of that, only because you want to spend probably some of it every year on parks and recreations and tourist
Well,
stuff.
we've definitely got to follow the B part law because that is like the 2%, 3%,
Right.
that is a law. Like you
Right.
can't deviate from that.
Right. But you can elect whether or not to do projects
Yes.
under, how fast should you move some of these projects? I don't know. Depends on how quickly you want to establish these reserves.
And this really doesn't impact like our capital budget, right? That's outside of this discussion. Is that correct?
Capital budget for the,
Like
Well,
eliminating pumping stations, water towers, I don't know. I'm making that up. I have no idea.
But
I'm with them.
well, the water tower, that's the enterprise fund, so that's all in the water
It's different.
fund. But the SIP does have general fund funding and or B part funding, right? So the SIP basically says, here's the capital projects of where we're spending money and here's the
Right.
revenue that we're targeting. Some of that needs to be refined because we just threw a $3.6 million fire station and said we're going to pay it out of revenue. We need to think about how we're actually going to pay for it, but
Right.
they're combined. Is that right? B part and general fund? I don't think we've got
No, they're separate CRP.
separate CIP. Okay.
Yeah, that's, I
Or,
just, yeah.
well, it's all on one CIP,
all on
but they have
page.
separate revenue and
Okay.
expenditures
Yeah.
for each fund.
Okay.
Just wouldn't want to stop and the board needs to push forward.
so,
What-
so Maryville, just to make sure we're clear on this.
Yeah.
So the B part funds has to be used for
Right.
B part purposes, right?
Correct.
And you can use it for police protection, but you have to demonstrate that
Right.
you've got incremental police protection because you have tourists on
Right,
the
right,
board
right,
and
right.
whatnot. So you've got to prove all, you got to be able to prove all of that, whatever you spend out of the B part fund. So you could probably make a case that part of the water tower should be paid out of the B part fund. I don't know.
I don't know either. That's why I'm asking because I don't
Yeah,
know.
you might build a bigger water tower because you have peak demands in the summer you wouldn't have if you had a.
I just
Well, the relevant one's the fire station, which I don't know. I've read in one of these that Holden Beach and fire protection is a B part expense, so.
Yeah,
Fire
And we
station
can
will come
definitely
before water
explain
tower.
it too, because it does have to be, as long as it's tied to, my understanding is if it's tied to tourism, that's the key. We're
Right.
a vacant island most of the year until Memorial Day, then boom, we're 20,000 people.
Cedric, you could argue on the other side that you're an island of 3,000 homes or whatever it is. You need to have a fire department to
because I'm
service
easier.
3,000 homes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So it gets a little bit tricky, and there's a lot of, as I understand, as I've read about, there's a lot of interpretation in all of this. And I have no idea how the auditors audit that, but I'll be interested when they come back to understand how they audit all of that, and how they get comfortable that we're spending the money in the appropriate way.
The reason you just hear me asking is I just want to make sure whatever we recommend, because I get what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to make reserves. Yes, down with that. I just want to make sure that we're not disrupting something else.
Sure.
And I don't know the answer to that. Are we?
Well, I think
Well,
we're building the airplane in the air, right?
Right,
You get it
we
up,
are.
you get it up and going, and it's like, oh my God, that wing, and then you're gonna patch
Right.
with whatever you got inside that cargo
Right, yeah.
area. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
We'll just keep
I
that.
just feel like I don't have that picture. That's all I'm saying. Like, if we're gonna make this recommendation to the board, we're gonna be assured, Tom, you as a representative of the board, that this is not going to derail anything you guys have going on.
Yeah, Maryville, I think that's hard for the board to decide too.
Yeah, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
board may decide, we don't want to do, you guys
Yeah.
don't know what's going on. We
Thank
don't
you,
wanna
but no
do
thank
that.
you.
That's up to them to decide that,
Okay,
We see a financial risk that we think needs to be
Sure.
addressed. We got suggestions on how to address the financial risk. May fit with their plan, may not fit with their plan,
correct.
is the way I process it anyway.
Okay.
Daniel, am I thinking about that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding of
Yeah,
kind of the board's purpose. It's, like I say, it's more of a,
Yeah.
this is what we see,
yeah.
do with it what you will, but this is our suggestion.
They could say we don't see the risk the same way you see the risk.
Okay.
We see the risk a different way,
All right.
which is their prerogative.
So I'm trying to understand how, these suggestions of having these reserves, should we try to get them into this document, or that's just a separate,
Would probably help the board to see it.
Yeah, and I've got it written here in terms of what my suggestion is. If you look at the bottom of this first, let me just hand these this way. If you look at the bottom, fund balance definitions, I don't know if there's enough going over there.
We have it. Oh, Elizabeth, that's one.
Yeah, everything is showing.
Yeah, I'll give mine to Daniel, I can read off the top. It's these two right down here, primary tax reserves, 3%, 2% revenue streams.
Okay.
Is what my suggestion is in terms of, and once again, I think I got 12 months of the first one, but I would suggest probably 6 months or half. Months is probably not an
is this
appropriate
a
term.
draft policy?
Yeah.
It is, but yours is much simpler. Yours is much
Okay.
simpler.
But that doesn't mean it's better.
Well, what do you like
Hey,
modifying it?
usually-
We must have the same brain, because it's literally, the same proposal I would think of, so I kind of want to retract.
Well, we can-
Previous motion, and accept this document as a starting document.
Let's walk through it, 'cause, yeah, I think that's a.
All right, so I started out with, and I used yours, Tom, as a starting point. Purpose and scope, lays out kind of why we're doing this. Town cannot purchase insurance company, it's a big risk. The legal framework, so everyone has an understanding of the occupancy tax, what it can be used for, and what it cannot be used for. I got the 3% and the 2%. And then I think those two funds need to be tracked separately, and I think there needs to be a lot of transparency around what goes into those funds and what comes out of those funds. And that's the risk of not the accounting segregation. And, I conclude with saying, therefore, the B part fund must maintain separate accounting records to track primary revenue 3%, additional tax revenue 2%, along with the respective expenditures and reserves. The segregated accounting increases transparency. People can look at those documents and understand where that money is coming from and where it's going to.
Yeah.
Okay? And then fund balance definitions, that's just what you talked about, restricted, committed, assigned, unassigned. And then here is what I suggested for the reserve requirements at the very bottom, what I just talked about now. Fund balance guidelines, that's how it's to be used. We could probably take that out because it's really the town staff to do that. I did put in capital project restrictions. All capital projects exceeding $2 million require demonstration that the project either reduces long-term catastrophic risk or can be completed without reducing segregated fund balance below the minimum reserve levels. And then if we have a catastrophic event, the town has to come up with a plan within 24 months to restore those balances in some sort of way. Not 24 months to restore it, but 24 months to come up with a plan. Then monitor reporting, annual review, policy amendments, effective date. I'll let you guys spend some time with that and read it if you want to take some time to read it. Yours is much simpler and straightforward.
Well, mine,
That's why I support that as well.
Yeah, and yours digs a lot deeper with the same content.
Yeah, I started all with town. The town document.
So, I like it, I'm thinking, I mean, it's a lot to do, so basically we're saying take the B part fund and create new funds.
We're taking this segregated B part fund into two funds, or what I'm saying is taking that 90 fund that Daniel talked about.
Make that one of them.
Yeah, the 90 fund exists, and, you know, that 2% that we collect that's supposed to go to the 90 fund should go into the 90 fund. And then the things are spent out of the 90 fund. That accounting should show, I should be able to take occupancy tax and multiply it by about 40%. And that's about what I should see coming into that fund, and then all the expenditures out of that fund.
Okay.
And that's the sand fund, if you will, that 90 fund.
Yes.
And I think that'll help. And then the other, you know, the 60% goes into the 3%
Yep.
fund, and then all of the expenses out of that 3% fund, and you maintain two separate reserves for the 3% and the 2%.
The only issue, traditionally what we've done for like spending money out of the beach nourishment fund, we've had to transfer the money from the beach nourishment fund to 50 to spend it.
Yeah, because you don't have a checking account for the beach nourishment fund, right?
Yes, well, and it's a capital reserve fund.
Yeah, and how you do that mechanically versus how you bookkeep it, it could be two different things. In other words, you'd show a transfer out to the other checking account, and you'd have to show a transfer in the other checking account. When you present it though, you can say $2 million spent on whatever the beach project this year, whatever the beach project was this year.
My only suggestion for like splitting B part would be, rather than completely splitting it, maybe do like two departments. Like, so it's still under 50, but
Sure.
maybe do like the beach nourishment and
Yeah,
tourism.
two divisions, if you will, yeah.
Well, and then what about pay parking revenues? Because that's going into B part now.
Well, that goes in that 3%. That
But
goes
it's
in
not an
that.
occupancy tax.
And I understand that, but that, there's the general primary tax reserves. So the primary tax reserves, that's everything but the 2%. So you'll see parking, when I look at the 3%, I would expect to see 60% of occupancy tax going into that. I would expect to see $1 million of parking revenue going into that. Then I'd expect to see all of the things for which we spent those funds for coming out of that. And I would look to see if there's any beach nourishment projects in there. Hopefully there's not. I'm sure there's not. And then when I look at the beach nourishment, the 2%, I see the amount coming from the general fund that the Board of Commissioners put in over the 70% or whatever.
Which that wouldn't be a B part, that goes directly from general fund to the 90.
So
Like the
you're
fund
basically
balance.
saying that 2% would be the 90.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand what the 90 fund is.
That's
Tell me-
the capital reserve fund, but that's the one that's your 2%.
But, yeah, that's 90 is where we send the general fund balance over 70%. That's where that goes, and where, I mean, that is the savings account for beach nourishment.
Beach and inlet capital reserve account.
Yeah, we can use that, we can use the 90 fund.
That's what I was thinking originally, that
So
fund
when
is set up.
When I look at the 90 fund, I expect to see that 70%. I would expect to see the 40% of the occupancy taxes, whether it's 1.6 or $2 million come in. And then I'd see all the beach nourishment projects during the year that were spent out of that fund. Now, I understand that the check may come from a different fund and you have to transfer the money over for a
Yeah, it would be
different
shown
fund.
as a transfer.
Yeah, but the way that the report that I would expect to see is I had transferred $90,000 over to the B part fund to put up new fence. I transferred $110,000 over to put new seals. I transferred $170,000 over to do this little project on the beach over here that was beach nourishment. In other words, you get the detail of that.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to say by splitting out B part, like the Fund 50, like right now there's 0710, which is like admin, and then 0810, which is more so beach stuff.
How do you
You guys-
differentiate
let me say
that
this,
from the-
let me say this. You guys know the accounting better than we do. So if you guys can come up with the spirit of this policy, come up with exactly how you're gonna account for it, what the reports might look like, I think that'd be
Well,
fantastic.
to me, teaching them what capital reserve fund is two, I don't understand how those two pieces would work together. It seems like.
I think you'd have to sit down and understand kind of what Daniel's, I think it's gonna take
Yeah.
time to understand how Daniel wants to account.
Yeah,
for
my
it.
only worry would be, like, we don't want to spend the money for sand fence, for surveying and all that out of 90, because that's just an unnecessary transfer to 90, then back to B part, where right now, the revenue's collected in the B part fund, it's got to be collected in the B part fund, and then it's spent out of B part also.
We may just be talking about management accounting here too. We may not be talking about how you book it in the system. We may just be talking
Yeah.
about management reports.
Yeah.
Because to me, the key is we need the 401k that we're saving for a big nourishment, and you're putting into it, and then if you're O'Ballon, you cash that out for $40 million.
I think we set that up here, Tom, but exactly how it's going to be accounted for and how it runs through the books, you have to understand the accounting system a little bit. We can gain that understanding over time. We're not going to do it today, I don't think. And-
So I'd move to, you talk about a quick document upgrade, so I would move to accept this document as our working document now. And with Daniel's additions as to how that should be broken out. And then we come up, then the implication of that, this is not gonna happen today, as you said. So I move to accept this, accept this board to accept this document to present as a working document. And
Is it ready? I mean,
and mark it up.
we need to,
And then we'll mark it up from that. Because right now we have this document, which has just been upgraded in the really quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think they're conflicting at all.
No, they're not. He just elaborates a lot better, and I believe it may answer more questions a lot quickly and allow people to engage a fruitful conversation about what we do with it, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll just mark it up from there. So I move that we.
Well, it's my document, so naturally I'd second it. It's really Tom's document, but
I guess I'm trying to think of how this plays out. Because, say we take it to the board, there's a lot of.
Always listening.
Yeah, really. Stress is stuff. So I'm just trying to think what we're going to ask the board to do
when do you want to take it before the board?
when it's ready, and I don't.
When's the
Yeah, this is not right. This is for us to adopt. I'm just only suggesting
Well, I
that
mean,
we adopt it
I
as a
think the
board.
board will adopt
to work
it
for.
soon.
Okay.
The sooner the better to get something in place.
So what do we need to do to this document to get it ready?
This has got those suggested funding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're
I
right
think
down.
we need to make sure that it doesn't create an undue administrative burden on staff, one. Two, the only question I have in here is the capital project restriction, but other than that,
And maybe I kind of alluded to that, but I intended with my motion to add that Daniel and the team would be able to use this as their working document and give us the feedback, because they're the feet on
can
the
you
ground, right?
administer this? And would you have to hire new staff or something? Because that's not what the intention, right, obviously, but, yeah.
No, I think me and Christy definitely need to go through it
Get feedback.
and kind of.
Yeah, mark it up, give us some feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to know what would it take to implement this from an administrative perspective.
Let's talk about process for just a minute.
Yeah.
So we give it to the staff, they get back to us with our feedback.
Right.
If we have changes, can we come together via a conference call or something and make the changes that we have? And can we do that? Do we need to do it
I
here?
think it's got.
We have to have a public
We have to come back here and do
Which
it?
we will have, I emailed Elsa also about where we're at with the process right now. She said, the report is drafted and it's with Marcy. They have several in the review process at the moment, so maybe a couple of weeks before they have her notes. And Marcy is the senior.
That's what I get the audits.
So we're looking to.
Once we have it back, we'll let you know if we need anything further, and then send a copy for review, and then send it over to Alan Thompson for the third party. and review.
That's really good.
Should we plan to finalize this at that meeting and then take it to the board immediately after that?
That would be good, because I don't think, I mean, we had a September meeting, we're gonna have that other meeting before the, I don't know if October is gonna be
When's the board, second Tuesday?
third Tuesday.
Third Tuesday, that's the 21st.
When, also provide dates, or we're still,
No dates right now. She said they've got a bunch in review, which I
Okay.
mean, the target
Target-
is the 30,
30th of October, I think.
yeah, 30th of October, so
But I thought she
we
should
should have
earlier.
grass a little earlier.
Yeah, so first couple weeks of October, we're thinking,
Yeah, I'd say mid-October probably.
okay.
And I think what we would have to do is like Daniel would have to be the hub of our deal, so it's all public and everything,
Right.
but if he just keeps emailing us and we email
Yeah.
him back.
Yeah.
Then he
Yeah,
keeps
not
emailing all of us.
All the suggested changes go to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So mark it up and redline it and.
Which I'll double check with Heather and make sure that's
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know.
kosher with the open meeting
That's fair.
rules and everything. That's,
So-
I think as long as it's one, that's.
So that motion's been altered, right? So
Mhm.
now, I changed my motion to adopt this document, Town of Holden Beach, E-Part Fund Policy, Balance Policy, with the caveat that Daniel and the team circle back with their edits, and we mark this document moving forward for presentation.
Second.
Okay. And then in our next meeting, you'll come back with the changes in the next meeting, and then we'll.
As long as next meeting's not next week.
I think we want to meet with the auditor, so let's see when the auditor is
Okay.
available.
Yeah.
Well, it could make it a very long, it wouldn't necessarily.
And this will probably be what, October, right?
Yeah.
This next meeting, I'll have a new hip, can't wait.
Oh, baby. Be a new man.
Yeah.
You're running in here.
Oh, man, really wanna.
Okay, so we got.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. We ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, so, I don't think we're gonna get to the occupancy tax, other than, homework assignments, I guess. Let's go ahead and start it. The issue here is, and there's some background material on it as well, but, for example, I know I had a neighbor that bought a house, started renting it, had his own real estate agency in Charlotte, and it's like, I just do not believe you even know about occupancy tax, let alone to collect it and submit it and everything else. And then, every now and then somebody sends me this post of, how much should I be charging? So it's the same thing, it's like, you don't know what to charge, you probably don't know how to pay it. So, and when we met with the auditor, it was kind of, we don't know what, the auditor can take the occupancy tax revenues that are received, make sure they're accounted for, show up on the records, fine, But we don't know what we don't know about who's got rental properties out there that, for whatever reason, don't even unaware they're supposed to be collecting it tonight. So that's the fundamental issue. There were a lot of towns, I think Sunset, others, South Fork, have looked into this. I haven't seen anything recently, so I don't know if they liked it and continued, or it didn't work and they didn't continue, but, I think this is something we need to look into.
Is there a calculation of water usage per house? Or utility usage, is that, something like that exists? Because that's how the law enforcement finds, production homes. It may be that same type of skill set that's needed for this. I'm just spitballing.
It's so hard to tell. I will tell you, so before we became full-timers, we rented our place and we VO'd it, and I had a panic attack about paying our taxes. And me and the nice lady in Brunswick spent a lot of time on the phone together, and then I was finally able to divine it out where the taxes were going and that they were in fact being paid in the way that they're supposed to be paid, so for the record, but
So for Verbo collects it though, is that
they
right?
do
Yeah.
collect it, but I couldn't tell on her end how she knew, and she actually said they send them in big checks, and they really cannot track them back. It is up to the homeowner to
Really?
They get huge buckets of money, and they don't know this little bit came from this address and that little bit, they just get big payments from VRBO and from Airbnb. And I don't know that they can track them backwards. I don't think they have the ability to do that. So just FYI, fun fact.
So that sounds like there needs to be some documentation,
why I had
maybe one of the
heard that.
utilities.
Yeah.
Like the water, so, with the town, so that sounds like another job.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what other towns are doing about it. I know the Outer Banks got kind of strict on that.
Yeah, the one I liked the best, and I don't know if it was Outer Banks or whatever, but they basically took a very positive approach and sent out letters saying, we know you want to do the right thing. If you are renting your house, please be aware that you need to have this either collected, and we'll help you. And here's a payment book you can even use if you're doing it all on your own.
That's awesome.
Figure it out, mail it in, and see where that gets you. Because that gets you all the people that are,
Don't want to.
willing. You're not going after the people that are out to,
Right.
do something wrong. And see what that brings in, and then from there, I guess you look at whether or not, people report people and say, I know they're renting and I don't think they're paying, because
Right.
it gets prey, I'm sure, because, friends and family
Yeah.
give you money to use your house.
Tom, can we form a subcommittee of two to go
I think that would be good,
to
to
go
investigate.
this?
I think the next steps would be to reach out to these towns and see because they've been in the paper.
Some of them are doing stuff. I don't
And
some of
and
them.
see how well it's going on.
I'm using New York as an example, just because we spend so much time up there with our family being sick, that they have been enforcing
Yeah.
on Airbnbs and VRBOs. And I think the best way to do that is to attach, okay, this is are you renting? And here are those coupons, and assume that everyone is until they're not, until they tell you otherwise in writing. So you're committing to that, and then you have to talk to the lawyers, legal disclosure at the bottom, this fraudulent document, blah, 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 this is a government document, this is a penalty.
I will tell you
Et
this
cetera.
though, I can't get off of the VRBO. They won't let me cancel that payment.
Uh,
I'm not, obviously, I've been living there for,
It's just dormant.
it sits dormant. They don't let you deactivate your, I know, it's a little creepy.
Really. What if you sell the house?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens.
So,
Yeah.
so do you want to lead that subcommittee?
I'm interested in digging in.
Anybody else want to join?
I'll help you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what other places, I don't worry about the Airbnb and VRBO, but they're definitely,
Just how do you track it? Where
so they're single, because they are paying, if you're paying the fee, it's going, I did confirm that the county and town are getting the money, but, it's the other
Now, does it
folks.
come to the town and the town pays the county, or?
That's
Okay,
correct.
so
Yeah,
we get the whole
Yeah.
6% or whatever.
Do we know where it comes from? From the-
How do we do verbos? Yeah.
It comes in a big payment.
I've never looked at it, but I know we get large checks from Verbo and Airbnb or Verbo and I think Big Casa.
Okay, well, Vacasa and Hobbs and
They're all-
Brockton, they're,
Yeah, they send large.
they break it out at all, or it's just, here's the money.
I believe it's broken out.
So there's literally there's no accounting system for any of that.
No, they just send big checks. I know, like I said, I had to backtrack it because I had a little mini heart attack thinking I was gonna go to jail, so.
And that's how you get the funds to come in, right?
Right, yeah,
With those
yeah, yeah.
type of,
I mean, so if you're running through those, they're paying, and then the property owner has to maintain their own records of the payment because it comes to the town and the county in big chunks. I
So
don't,
when you were in Verbo, you knew what they paid on your behalf?
I can see it, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I can
okay.
see it. Yeah, I can see them paid on. I
Okay,
can see their take, they broke it out.
okay.
I just had to call and spend time with folks and make sure. But then I was like, well, then how does the county or town know? And the answer was they don't know. But I think the folks where you really get the return on investment will be the people who are just doing it themselves.
Well, and you hear, I'm on Verbo, but I can save you money if you just come to me.
Yes,
Uh,
that's true.
So, that's more and I think one of the towns did that. They hired somebody to go on the internet looking for places and found places that were being advertised.
And then they say just do it directly.
And then they sent them and said, I hope you pay your taxes, here's how you pay it. Because odds are, just from the
Right.
search, they're not. You know,
Right,
So
right.
that subcommittee will come back to us at our next
Yeah,
meeting.
because I think some
Have
places have done
suggestions in terms of what we could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd be very interested in just what these other towns that have gone down the path, did they find success, did they abandon, you know, what did they learn that we can leverage? And then,
Yeah. Do you think the Outer Banks kind of clamped down a little bit?
yeah.
So maybe because we can't meet formally, otherwise it's a
Well,
full.
the two of you
No, it's just
can,
the two of us.
you guys
Oh,
can
me
meet.
too.
you
We're
can-
not a,
you're
we're not a quorum.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's why it's gotta be. So, please do meet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me do some digging. When's your surgery?
October the 2nd, so
Okay.
I'm flexible.
Okay.
Got some time on your hands.
Yeah.
You'll
Okay.
recover.
I'll get you-
Yeah, and I literally just wrote down retired, so,
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, anything else?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Before we go,
Hold on.
before we go, can we go do you have the motion for, the working document?
Yeah.
You just read that back, make sure we're all
Yeah.
good on what
Hang on,
we need to do.
Yeah, hold on. I wrote a bunch of stuff. It's gonna take me a minute.
I'll send it to Daniel. Yeah, send it out. Daniel, I'll send the electronic version of this to you so you can send it out.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
And you got a direct one too.
Good job.
If it's tough, that's fine, we can go back to the recording.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I got it.
You good? Okay.
All right. Motion second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Bye.